Our next session, the role of geospatial in the prevention of climate risks. Please welcome to the stage your moderator, Managing Director and Board Member, Insurer, Chris Lowell.
Good morning, everyone. All right, excellent. So thank you so much for coming. We're going to have a fantastic conversation about geospatial data. A little bit of background on myself. My name is Christopher Lowell. I am the Managing Director of Insurer, a nonprofit innovation hub at the intersection of climate change and insurance. We focus on two major issues in the insurance space today. One is the energy transition and making sure that there's enough risk capital and insurance products to support the decarbonization and path to net zero that we are on. And two is the general affordability, accessibility, and insurability of today's communities and increasing resilience. All right? We are working to save the planet via insurance. So what I'd like to tell you a little bit about today is the topic, geospatial data. In a world of polycrisis, new risks, and vulnerabilities, they are more recurrent and unpredictable and interconnected, putting at threat our global stability, sustainability, and well-being. As an insurer, AXA's role is to support society in adapting to those changes and build climate and social resilience. Prevention plays a key role in climate adaptation and transition. Understanding climate risk means being able to better anticipate and reduce these impacts on societies and ecosystems. And I'd like you to join me in discovering how AXA Digital Commercial Platform innovates in the face of many of these challenges. The structure for our next 45 minutes is I'm going to introduce Martin Powell to the stage. He's going to give a little bit of a keynote address on some of the topics in climate. And then myself, and then I'll introduce Guillaume and Pierre, and we'll have a sit-down panel. So with that, please let me introduce to you Martin Powell. He is the AXA Group Head of Sustainability, and he's responsible for many things, so I'm going to make sure I get this right. He's responsible for leading the development and implementation of the climate strategy, energy policies, human rights, philanthropy, and volunteer activities at AXA. He is also director of the AXA Research Fund, supporting academic research to understand emerging risks. Martin graduated in engineering from the University of Dundee and has held influential roles throughout his career. Notably, he was the environment advisor and deputy London mayor to Boris Johnson, and director of environment for the mayor's economic development agency. He also held the group head of sustainability role at Siemens. He's also the author, is an author of publications on climate and resilient cities, and has recently released a book entitled The Climate City. So please join me in welcoming Martin Powell.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Just for the record, I never voted for Boris. So thanks, Chris. Good morning. Thanks for inviting me. I know this may sound very obvious, but the physical risks associated with rising temperatures is actually far more serious than what happened in this city back in 2012. I don't need to remind everyone of the devastation. This cost could be even higher if it happened again. We learned many lessons. We rebuilt differently to cope with those risks, but the risks have changed. The frequency has increased. The heat is really now a problem. Air pollution is an increasing problem. And added to that, the health problems associated with these kind of events is now moving to another level. Between 1950 and today, there are now 15 times more extreme events linked very closely to rising temperatures. So as the temperatures continue to increase, it's uncertain but pretty clear that this trend is going to go a little further. If you look globally, 7.7 million people were displaced by disasters, the dark blue being the highest concentration, the light blue being the lowest. But actually, nobody is really immune to these kind of disasters. So every community faces that threat. I'm beginning to understand why I don't get invited to many parties. The geospatial mapping, it's a long, important journey where we can really better understand those impacts, allow us to protect communities very specifically, very local communities, but with much longer-term solutions. And those business cases can be really built today. But also really to better protect people in the moment. And what I mean by that is, if we can release emergency funds that support businesses through the worst times of these crises, to protect environmental assets, we can really limit some of the longer-term damage and the cost. And a great example of this in Belize, we offer a sort of a parametric solution for a coral reef. So after a storm, the silt goes onto the coral reef, and if it's not cleared within a couple of days, then all the sea life disappears. So this is about triggering support in the moment when it matters, and then afterwards thinking about how you can put in longer-term solutions to protect those kind of assets. You're going to hear from Chris, Pierre, and Guillaume shortly, also about how we can facilitate those businesses, the parties at risk, and match make them to solutions that and solution providers that exist. So this platform is really something that we need, and we need to grow it, and it needs to become something quite important. Air pollution in big cities is rising. I can tell you also with urban heat island effects in a city like New York, it makes that impact even worse. I can tell you in London, 4,267 people die prematurely every year from poor air quality. And I suspect, unfortunately, in New York, it's higher because it's more dense, it's hotter, more vehicles, still a higher concentration of gas and other elements that contribute to that. I'm very pleased to say my youngest daughter has a superpower where she can detect unsafe levels of air pollution, allowing her to avoid the very worst hotspots. So it's a really quite a cool superpower. I think you'll agree. Many of you may refer to it as an asthma attack rather than a superpower, but that's what it is. So on exactly the same level of fine particulate matter in New York City, when it breached this level, my daughter would have an asthma attack. That's how we feel the impacts of changing climate, physical risk, and the reactions to us in society. And we took her to watch a movie actually it was in Washington, D.C., in a museum about how these changing risks also impact nature, natural habitats, biodiversity, which actually have also wider impacts on things like food supply chains. And this includes heating up of our oceans, and without a healthy and regenerative ocean, we won't solve climate change. I can tell you at the end of this movie, actually all of the monkeys on the planet get completely wiped out. It's a really brutal movie. It's not a Disney, definitely not a Disney movie. And this was her at the end of the movie. Sophisticated risk analysis really can help us learn about how we build back better. Many talked about this after COVID. We need to build back better. We need to learn from it. The air pollution during COVID in New York City was at the lowest level since the 18th century. And now it's back pretty much to what it was pre-COVID. So we need to think about how we protect our homes, our businesses from floods, weather, heat, with cleaner, greener solutions. We need to give people the opportunity to build back better, to think about how they can swap their energy solutions for greener solutions, how they can think about improving their insulation and other very basic measures which would protect a place like New York even better. And we're already doing it. We use natural solutions to cool our cities. In Medellin, they achieved a 2-degree reduction in temperature, and that's extremely meaningful, reducing air pollution. And if you expand this to cleaner vehicles and helping some of our biggest customers to transition faster, we can play an even bigger role. The true reality is we need to invest around $90 trillion in sustainable infrastructure by 2030. That's just 6 years from now. And a report by the New Climate Economy said a lot of this is all about just renewing old equipment, replacing old for new, and really just thinking a bit more cleverly about how we restructure some of that low-carbon tech. This needs to be spent in both developing countries as well as mature markets, but really to bolster the green economic growth in those markets. We definitely need some bigger thinking. I'm excited actually about the potential of parametric insurance to protect livelihoods, but also natural assets, and as I said, in the moment when they're needed. We need more innovation in flood resilience, more analytics to minimize the disruption. Our former CEO said a 4-degree increase in global temperatures would make the world uninsurable. But actually, what we say now is that a 2-degree increase, which is looking ever likely, makes the world unaffordable. And according to the World Bank, about half of the world's population are in climate vulnerable environments. So at 2 degrees, we are really exposing a vast amount of our population to something pretty serious. The Nature Communications Review adds that extreme weather events have cost $16 million per hour for the last 20 years. So by the end of the panel you're about to see, that's another $16 million spent just fixing the damage. So a number for you, hopefully, to hold into your mind. Finally, back to the monkeys. In 1952, a single macaque monkey was observed cleaning its fruit, washing its fruit in the river before eating it. And I can tell you that today, every single colony of macaque monkeys observed is now cleaning its fruit in the river, even colonies outside of their native Japan. This isn't a lesson of communication. This is about best practice. This is about thinking how we can take the best ideas, the best innovations, share them more broadly, put the right providers with the people at risk, and really scale up that activity. And so what you're going to hear about, a little bit about next, are how good ideas, best practices can be shared to best protect our society. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
All righty, everyone. Please join me again in thanking Martin Powell for that wonderful conversation around the role of the insurer. So thank you very much. So we'd love to transition now to a panel discussion. It will be interactive, minorly interactive. We've got a set of questions, but we'd love questions from you guys. So hopefully on screen, you'll now see a QR code. So you can use Slido to provide some questions during the next approximately half an hour. And I'll take a look at those questions and insert them sort of where appropriate. What I'd like to do now is introduce 2 people to the stage. The first is Pierre Durostu. He is the CEO of AXA Digital Commercial Platform and Smart Services. In this position, Pierre leads a team dedicated to building innovative global solutions that provide value to AXA's commercial lines clients beyond protection by providing assessments of risk, prevention advice, and services, combining emerging technologies together with other AXA services and products. I would also like to invite Guillaume Muscadet, who is the Vice President of Business Software and Transformation at Kairos. He joined the company in 2021 after spending more than 20 years working in sales roles across energy, defense, IT, and other critical industries. So please join me in welcoming Pierre and Guillaume. Alrighty.
Where do we sit?
Oh, wherever you'd like. You can even stand and run around if you'd like.
So that's kind of
Excellent.
questions.
Excellent. So I'm actually going to start with you, Pierre. We've got a whole crowd of audience, and I'd like to pick up where Martin Powell left off, which is the role of the insurer. Would you mind telling us a little bit, like, as CEO of AXA Digital Commercial Platform, do you think the role of the insurer has changed at all over the past few years?
Thanks a lot, Chris. Hello, everyone. I can't see no one. Hopefully you're there. It has changed, and it needs to change further. If I'm being a bit oversimplistic, and maybe some of my colleagues will kill me after the session, but the role of an insurer is pretty simple. You need a lot of people putting a small amount of money with the promise that if something happens to some of those clients, the pot of money will be used to pay for the loss. And the model works really well. It has been working for 100 years like that, and it's really efficient. But it works until the time that the loss comes so high that it's above what's in the pot of money. And this is a challenge that we as an industry are facing with climate change. We know, and Martin shared a couple of figures right before, we know that the losses, the economic losses related to climate change become so high that it's a challenge to the whole business model of the industry. So we have to go beyond, and we've already started to go beyond for a couple of years. There are plenty of different ways where we insurer go beyond. So I pride myself being part of AXA. We were the first one exiting coal, for instance. So this is a way where we go beyond. We have invented new insurance products. We do parametric insurance to cover extreme losses for extreme events. And now where we are heading to is, and it's more the topic for today, is around the prevention and how we insurer can invent and invest in innovation so that we create new solutions to bring our clients, to provide them with solutions that will help them understand their exposure, understand their risks, and do the right thing at the right time to reduce the exposure. Because we know that prevention works. It has been working for a long time. Now we just need to go at scale, much bigger, much faster, much bolder, to make sure that we insurer bring solutions to our clients, again, to understand their risk and to mitigate their risks.
That's fantastic. And I think it's a perfect transition. I'm going to stick with Pierre for a second, which is, can you tell us a little bit more about the digital commercial platform at AXA and how it addresses basically everything you just suggested that insurers need to do?
So we are, AXA Digital Commercial Platform is the practical implementation of those principles. We want to bring more than insurance, to go beyond insurance. And we've created what I like to call a startup in a large group, which means that we are neither a startup nor a large group, but we are hybrid. We are a standalone vehicle in which we combine expertise, risk expertise, together with technology to create solutions that will help us better understand the risks. And I want to insist on this one because it's really important that we, the industry, mature enough using geospatial technology, for instance, to improve our way of modeling. And we'll talk about wildfire right after as a practical example on how the historical model we use across the industry are losing relevance because of climate change. So we need to invest in new technologies to update our models to better understand the risks, but not only for us, for our clients as well. And what we provide to our clients is solutions that basically help them understand where their assets are. And I know it sounds trivial, but it's actually pretty complex. When I'm talking assets, I'm thinking, for instance, vessels, cargo, planes, buildings, and so on and so on. How those assets are exposed to risks and largely to climate change, how to anticipate, how to adapt, and how to prevent things to happen. And this is very much what we have started to do. And the way we do it is by building a platform. And if you want to understand how a platform works, probably the best analogy is to take your smartphone. We kind of all have the same smartphone, but what's really unique with the smartphones is, if you have an Apple, the App Store, where you find all the solutions that you would need individually, and that will enable you to create your own experience. And if we were to compare all our iPhones, we all have the same, but we all have very different experiences because we all have very different needs. And this is what the AXA Digital Commercial Platform is. We create somehow the iPhone of the risk management, of the risk understanding, and we gather around us a whole ecosystem of partners, startups like Kairos and like others, that bring their expertise, and we help bringing those expertise into the hands of the clients to help them understand their risks and better manage and prevent things to happen. And this is very much a stance that we've taken. We have to have an open ecosystem. We need to lean on others. We can't bring alone all the solution, and that's why we have to join forces, because the challenge we have in front of us are so big that we need to join forces to bring solutions to help the society and to help our clients.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Pierre. Let's see if we can get more tangible and specific. I'm going to shift over to Guillaume, as one of the sets of data on the platform. Guillaume, can you tell us a little bit about Kairos?
Yeah, so hi, everyone. So Kairos is a global environmental intelligence company. So what does it mean, basically? So we're taking AI, machine learning, and data from satellites, data imagery. We process all that data through our proprietary algorithm to get insights and useful insight for our customer. So those insights could be methane emissions, deforestation, carbon sequestration, and on the risk level could be wildfire. We work on that with and I'll talk about that a little bit later, flood, drought, and our customers and even the regulators and government are using those insights to make decisions and take actions.
All right. And so what is your partnership with AXA, and why is that important to work with the insurers on this?
Yeah, so we're very pleased with to work with AXA. So I think AXA realized, as Pierre was saying, that the world is changing and the new technology are now available. And based on that technology, those insights could actually help them move from, as you say, Pierre, from a more response model to a new approach to a prevention model. And those insights can help them do that and help, typically protecting the assets, protecting people, and be more forward-thinking with those risks.
Can you give the audience a sort of a specific example? I know that over the past few months, you've been working together on a wildfire screening model. Can you tell us sort of what that involves? Like, how do you build that, and how do you think about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we work with AXA on developing that wildfire model. So it's got 4 pillars to try to be synthetic. The first one will be the risk assessment. So looking at the assets, at the granularity of the assets, and look at the risk score per asset. The second component will be the live monitoring. So you can actually, with the satellite, detect a fire and see how it's moved, what the progression, what the propagation. Going with that, you've got the alerting system. So it's nice to see that happening in real time, but you need to alert your customers or the insurer agents that a fire is near the property and give them a propagation model. And the last bit being the damage assessment. So once the fire is gone, you can have a first look at the damage. So the benefit of a system using satellites is, as Pierre mentioned earlier, the historical model were based on statistics and past fires and things like that, where the satellite is actually looking at the ground truth. So our model that we built with the DCP is based on more than 20 different factors. So it goes from the slope, the humidity of the soil, the density of the vegetation. It goes even to the proximity of the infrastructure, or even the proximity of the fire brigade. All that input into the model, and give a risk score per asset, right? So the beauty of that model, if we can try to summarize in 3 points. First of all, because it's satellite, it's global. So today, the model that we've developed with the DCP covered the US, Australia, and Europe, but before the end of the year, it will cover the whole world, because satellite doesn't have any frontiers. The other thing is that the granularity and the resolution of the satellite, when you look at the risk assets, the level of risk per asset, now the resolution gives you roughly to 50 meters. And when you go to damage assessment, it goes to 10 meters. And the other thing is you can actually, because it's ground truth data, refresh the model on a monthly basis. And that also, as a bonus, helps AXA to actually analyze the risk per factor and play with those factors with the customers to reduce that risk. So give you an example, you got on the risk of one asset, that's the proximity of a forest, or the need to clean the trees around the property because that's increased the risk. By doing that, by looking at those risks, you can actually remove the trees or clean the surroundings, and the following months, your risk will have decreased. So it's really, we go really into the prevention model of the risk.
That's fantastic. You talked about that granularity. That's about the width of this room.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic granularity.
If I may just add one point, I think this is exactly what we mean when we say we have to change our model. Because this solution helps changing the relationship with the client as well. We are not just the insurer. We're here to prevent and to protect. We had a strategy at AXA that we called payer to partner, and it's very much about being the partner of our clients and bring them practical advice on the ground during the year to help them reduce their exposure and have a direct impact on their risks.
That's wonderful. And so we just talked about Kairos and that wildfire. Are there other initiatives that sort of make use of this type of technology, Pierre?
Yeah, there are plenty. What you have to understand is the level of maturity of our industry is relatively low. There was this stat in the journal a few months ago that says that 50% of the submission we get from a broker are incomplete or incorrect. So we need to find ways, if we want to accompany our clients, we need to find a way to have better data. And this is somehow the beauty of geospatial analytics, is that at scale, we have ways to gather new data on the clients, on the risks, to help them very much understand the risks. So we look at geospatial data through somehow 4 pillars as well. Sorry, we did not rehearse. The first one is location data. Is how do we use satellite picture to understand very precisely where the assets are. Again, it sounds trivial, but a matter of meters counts. Depending on where you are, where the building is, the exposure to flood will be completely different. So the prevention plan that you have to put in place will be different as well. So that's number one. It's about geolocation. The second one is about data enrichment. With satellite picture, with plenty of different sensors, we are able to gather plenty of different set of data. For instance, identify solar panels on a roof, for instance. Well, if there is solar panel on a roof, maybe there is an aggravating factor for risks. So we need to help clients as well take that into consideration in their prevention plan. So that's number two, data enrichment. The third one, and this is what Guillaume mentioned, is about the risk assessment piece, which of course is critical to the clients, to the society, and to us. And the fourth one is about the claims management. What happened after an event. And this one is actually really important as well, because we know that the faster we respond to an event, the smaller the loss will be. And this is critical to the society because, as we discussed, as Martin was saying right before, the economic losses are so big that we have to find any way possible to reduce those losses. And typically, fast response after a flood, after a claim, is a practical way to have an impact and to leverage this type of technology. Last point, as we are at Climate Week, we use a lot of geospatial analytics as well to help our clients on their ESG journey. We have more and more clients coming to us and say, okay, now you know where our assets are. How can you help me understand my footprint? How can you help me understand how much methane I emit every year? How can you help me measure how much CO2 I emit, et cetera, et cetera? Well, thanks to geospatial analytics, there are now more and more new sensors, different types of sensors. We can use those technology to have very, very precise measures that are not based on estimation, in an Excel spreadsheet, but are practical and actual measurement, which is critical. And we have to go that route because this is the way we believe will make the difference to our clients in their adaptation journey. If we are able to measure precisely their impact today, we are able then to provide them advices, recommendations, partners to adapt and to reduce their exposure to climate change on the long run.
I completely agree. That's wonderful. So we're going to have a little change now. I had a number of wonderful softball questions that I won't ask. The questions from the audience have been fantastic, but they are not easy.
So keep you up then.
So here we go. Actually, I'll start with a little clarifying question. Someone asked, and I think this is for Guillaume, but maybe not. How do you activate and engage governments to use or to implement geospatial data? What's the role of governments in that story?
They've got a big role in the regulations, basically. So when you look at methane emission, for instance, as soon as there is a regulation or the governments want to have actually a way of measuring things based on ground truth again, they use systems like us. Recently on methane emission, we had few contracts with countries that wanted to have a complete audit on their methane emission, for instance. So the governments are actually placing orders with us to monitor that with the geospatial technology. So that's the type of interaction that we've got with those governments.
Maybe if I may just add a few points. I think geospatial is probably the poster child for collaboration in between private and public sectors.
So, yeah,
last week, I had the opportunity to meet a couple of regulators here and there in different countries. And we all came to the point where we say, okay, maybe we should work at that together. And I want to insist on that because for us, it's really important to say, it's not a closed ecosystem. It's not just an AXA solution for AXA clients, and that's just our own stuff. If we want it to be successful, we have to broaden the ecosystem, to work at it together, and to work with the regulators on practical things. I had this conversation with a regulator who asked me about, European ESG regulation and CSRD, the reporting that you have to provide to the regulator, etc. And we discussed about the level of accuracy of the KPIs they ask us or any type of company across the globe to report to. And we discussed about the fact that some of the KPIs are actually, like methane, for instance, highly precise, highly measurable, and it's actual data. And some are, I can't say the B word, but you all know what I mean. Some are much more theoretical, based on high-level estimation, et cetera, et cetera. And this is why, to me, we have to work together because geospatial brings the scale we need, and we have to work together even to define the KPIs that make sense. And this is where I was highly excited with those conversations, is that the regulators themselves wanted to join forces to say, okay, let's solve it together, Let's work together at defining what works, what does not work, and how we can make it at scale.
That's great. So there are a number of questions that all target something that could be a hot seat type question. And Daniel, if you're out there, I'm going to rephrase your question a little bit. With a lot of this new data coming out, it appears that many insurers use that data to reduce coverage and reduce the coverage and the capital they put at risk in certain areas. react. How do you think about that, and how do we get past that perception around communities, in some sense, being victims of increased data available to insurers?
So I'll have the easy answer and then the hard answer. The easy answer is I don't do insurance, I just do services, so it's not my topic. No, of course it's a joke. I don't see it this way. There is a direct correlation in between the level of risks and the actions that are put in place to reduce the risk. And it's been the case forever. We have prevention engineers that will go visit a site, and if there are sprinklers, the price won't be the same that if there are no sprinklers, which is logical. So it will always be the case. So of course, depending on the level of risks, the price will be different, that's for sure. And that has always been the case. Now, to my point on public-private partnership, on collaboration, etc., I think we should look at it through a slightly different angle. If we are able to be much better at understanding risks, at assessing and evaluating the actual exposure, we will free up some capital to bring more to the table. Let me explain. Today, we use a lot of reinsurance, et cetera, and since we all have a very partial view, we as an industry have a partial view of the risks, we put buffers everywhere, if that makes sense. Typically, having better data will help us remove the buffers and reallocate our capital to other risks. So that's number one. The second point is that, yes, we are facing risks as well that are barely insurable. And we talk about climate adaptation here, but we could talk about geopolitical instability or cyber risks. It's kind of the same story. We know those are risks that we won't be able to insure through a traditional angle. So we have to invent a new way then to protect our clients, because we don't want to leave our clients and say, hey, sorry, we don't insure you anymore. So that's why, to me, the prevention angle should be the answer. Because again, we know that prevention works. We have proven it. If you have a flood-proof door, well, guess what? If there's a flood, you will have less impact. And this is why we have to incentivize our clients, to help our clients to do more prevention, because this is part of the answer. The traditional insurance product can't be the sole answer to that, and that's why we have to do more and more prevention.
Thank you. Honest answer. So I'm going to shift back over to Guillaume for a second. How can this geospatial data be made available to individuals, and such that they understand their own risks, and a little bit to Pierre's point, can use that information to either better harden their homes or reduce risks on their own? Do you have any relationships in that way, or how do you see that in the space?
It is available. The thing is if you take the images, the raw images going from satellite, you won't be able to do much things about it. What our know-how and competencies is to take that image and to process it in a way that it's a useful information. So it's true that today our target customers are more the companies and not the public. But nevertheless, that platform could actually, we can see that putting, as a public website where people can actually look at their risk and assess themselves their risk. That there's nothing preventing that today.
Yeah, that's fair. Pierre, back to you on a couple of topics. You've talked about the role of insurance in fighting climate, but specifically, and this is to Caroline in the audience, her question. How do you think about the choices about whether insurers, how do they choose to support either major polluting projects or clients, and how do you use data to sort of help those companies on a journey?
I mean, we as insurer? So I'm not the best person to answer, Caroline.
You're in the chair now.
So Caroline, happy to point you to the right direction. A couple of points though. The first one is that we at AXA have adopted very strict guidelines on what we want to insure, what we want to cover, and what we don't want. I was taking the example of coal at the beginning of the discussion. We could talk about tobacco. If we say that our mission is to take care of what matters, protect what matters, we can't be insuring the coal industry or tobacco industry, when at the same time we're trying to manage large claims or health of our insurers. So there is kind of a strict guideline that we have put in place. The second point is that we have taken some very clear commitments vis-à-vis our investors on how the profile of the portfolio of the company we insure tends to be better. And again, I don't have the precise target in mind, but happy to share that offline if anyone wants. But the way we do that is that we measure as well the impact of our own clients, and we provide them with practical advices and consulting. So we have AXA as a company that's called AXA Climate, and they provide practical climate adaptation consulting. So they would go on site, visit the site, and give practical adaptation so that overall the portfolio of clients of AXA reduces its impact, and overall we as an insurer take this commitment to accompany our clients toward more efficient profile.
That's great, thank you. I'm actually we'll sort of wrap up. We only have about 3 minutes left with the same question to both of you, and it comes from the audience, so thank you. They were really fantastic questions today. What will be the frontier of AI and additional data in this space? Like, what additional insights might be able to sort of, support on both pre and post-insurance or risk events? Like, what are you working on? What do you see others working on? What excites you in the space?
So we're working on a lot of new models and on new perils like flood, draft, and things like that. But I think, I've been in Kairos for 4.5 years, and even the progress in the satellite business and what you can get, the resolution, the speed of which you get the data, the real-time data, make us progress very quickly on those models. So, be a little bit theoretical, say there's no frontier, but it keep progressing all the time. Give you an example with methane emissions. 4 years ago, when we were detecting methane emissions or methane leaks, right? The threshold was 1 ton per hour. Today, we are with the new technology as hundreds and even less than 100 kilos per hour. So we can think that, within a couple of years, you will be able to actually see the little leak on a pipe at an asset level. So it's really, the technology allows us to go deeper and deeper and even more closer to the
and that's from satellite imagery.
And that's from satellite
rather than. And I've never thought about it as a conflict between that and, say, IoT or Internet of Things sensors. But if you can use satellite to be the general sensor.
Yeah, no. I mean, so there's IoT and we're complementary, but I mean satellite. And because I'm working in that, so the imagery means any type of sensors, right? It could be images, it could be hyperspectral, microwave, could be infrared. All those different sensors that are on the Earth observation satellites allow us to draw that insightful information.
And now, so you'll have the sort of last word on what's the future look like, Pierre.
So, Geospatial is an amazing technology, and we can do more and more. And it's completely amazing to see how it developed over the past few years. Even the cost of images dropped, so which means that we will be more and more capable to use it. We use a lot of IoT as well. We have sensors in buildings to monitor the health of the building, because of course with a satellite you can't see inside a building or inside a container, for instance. So to me, it's very much how do we combine all those data together. We are now testing generative AI, and it seems to be very, very promising to bring practical advices at scale to our clients to help them. And somehow the way I see it is we are living right now kind of a dual transition. So transition to green, which is great, but at the same time we have the technology transition that enables us to go much faster on the green transition. So somehow one of the two transitions is one of the main enablers to the other, and I think technology is a great solution for us to go much faster in order to solve the challenge we have ahead of us with climate change.
Okay. You all good?
Yeah, absolutely.
Please, so that's all of our time we have. This was a fantastic discussion. I think both Guillaume and Pierre and myself are around afterwards to continue in the hallways if you'd like. Please join me in thanking Pierre and Guillaume for this wonderful conversation.
Thank you.